recording, and then I'll just go back to my PowerPoint slide. Yeah, so I'll go to the slideshow mode. Let's wait for... You can see this, right?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for that. I'd like to welcome you all to my humble talk on something that I have discovered after almost 18 years of teaching, and I feel obliged really to share it with others because of my belief on that it is a powerful method. So I'd like to welcome you all to my presentation on making teaching and learning visible. It is about sharing your intellectual work of teaching via collaborations and peer reviews. Now, we had a bit of an introduction. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dr. Masaid Al-Jawari. I'm an assistant professor of organizational change from the Department of Management. I graduated from this department in 2001, I think, or I finished in 2001 and graduation was in 2002. I then became a demonstrator, like a teaching assistant, did my master's in organizational development and change in Australia. And then I came back, I taught for some time, and I went to England and I did my PhD in organizational development and change, and I focused on strategic change in government businesses at the moment. Now, I am a fellow of the Center of Excellence for Teaching and Learning, and we also have Dr. Ali Al-Farhini, who is also a fellow of the center, and he's here. And that is about me. I would like to thank you all for your time. Now, I want to start this talk by saying something that I was advised to say by someone who influenced my thoughts. He said, whenever you talk to teachers, start with this, say, I'm not an expert. You see, and I follow that because it works. I'm not an expert, and that's the truth. I'm not an expert in education, and I'm not here to tell others how to teach. You know, I'm just a teacher who loves teaching, a teacher who believes in continuous improvement, and a teacher who believes in the power of peer collaborations. Now, the purpose of me wanting to do this talk is to share with you three main ideas. I want to share some of what I learned over the years. I want to invite you to making your teaching and learning visible. And I want to encourage a culture of teachers' collaborations in College of Economics and Political Science. Let me start by looking back. I'm a reflective teacher, and I've always been like that, even when I was a student, when I was a little girl in school. I like looking back and thinking, you know, linking the dots, because I learn a lot by doing that. Now, when I look back, I was thinking of designing this presentation. I said, okay, how should I start? Reflect and share with others what you've learned. Well, after almost 2 decades of teaching and continuously questioning the way I do things as a teacher, and my desire to continuously improve, I discovered a very powerful way of improving. That was in spring 2020, and I'd like to share that with you. But before that, I'd like to tell you a little bit about me as a teacher. And this is as a start for initiating a culture of teachers talking about teaching. You see, my journey in this college started several years back, but it has been a lonely journey, kind of an isolated journey. I worked very hard, very silently, you know, but deep inside my heart, there was a lot of satisfaction. And the secret was I believed in the significance of my job. I knew that I had power, I had influence. Every day I was shaping the cognitive frameworks of students, and I was making change from the classrooms. And that made me feel that there is a great responsibility on me. Being given the opportunity to stand in front of students. I teach almost 200 students every semester. Now, it wasn't like that. I started with 40. Now it's 150, 200 every semester. That's a big number. That's a big responsibility. I'm touching hearts and I'm touching minds. This is how I see my job. And this is the secret of the intrinsic motivation I have, and the secret to why I love staying in SQU, besides other reasons. So knowing the significance of my job gave me a lot of satisfaction, but I always had this burning desire, and I still do, to do better and better every semester. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about the kind of culture I found. Now, I moved from being a student to being a teacher. And I remember very clearly the instructor who taught me organization development and change at the bachelor's level, Dr. Muhyiddin Kursi, whom I am still in touch with. He told me in my first meeting in the department, he said, "Miss Ida, welcome to the other side. You are the enemy now." And that, I still remember it very clearly. And I thought, why should I be the enemy? I'm here to facilitate learning. I'm here to do something noble. Why should I be seen as an enemy? But that was quiet. I just smiled back. I didn't say anything. But now, almost 18 years later, I still remember this. And it kind of influenced the way I relate to students. So why was my journey solo? Or at least, why do I see it that way? You see, I simply found it as a preferred way of teaching in the college. People working in silos, we hardly ever meet. We meet in department meetings and people want to leave very quickly. Nobody wants to talk about teaching. People avoid chats about teaching. You know, many instructors came across to me as very territorial, very defensive when you start talking about their ways of teaching and suggesting, you know, saying, "Did you try this or that?" That's the impression I got. Now that made me dissatisfied, but I couldn't change the culture. So I struggled within, and I started looking at myself and said, you know what, I'll be the change that I want to be. I can't do it here. I don't have the power. I don't have the information, but I'll look outside. I'll look elsewhere. So I started searching for people outside the university, in other continents, other parts of the world. And I found teachers of the world who had curiosity, who had a passion for teaching, people who were so excited to talk about teaching, to share with others what worked, what didn't work. I tried this method, I made mistakes, and they were talking without any fear, without any sense of feeling that you're threatened when others oppose you. They did it with passion. They did it with collegiality. They did it with a lot of something called intellectual humility. And they did it for the purpose of learning and advancing. So it's a growth mindset. I followed them. I read what they wrote, and I watched many videos, and I was growing along the years, but it was all within my office and in my classrooms. Now, through my readings, the videos I watched, the questions I was asking, the questioning of my own practices, I was guided by many questions. A lot of curiosity was there. So I'd like to share with you some of the questions that guided me. I used to ask myself, why do I teach? And I do sometimes hear other people who say, oh, this teacher seems like they don't like teaching. Why do they even teach? They seem like not to like students at all. They hate students. So why do they teach? And that question was always on my mind. When I was a student in the college, sitting quietly, I used to be the early birds in the class, used to sit in the front always. And I would look at my teachers silently and think, why are they teaching? What made them move to teaching? Well, then when I became a teacher, I had to find an answer for that. And now, after 17, almost 18 years, I believe that I teach for two reasons. And this is what John Adams said. And I totally agree with him. Now, people in economics will be happy that I'm quoting John Adams. There are two educations. One should teach us how to make a living. And I say, yeah, why am I going to work every day or in my home office, spending hours delivering lectures, facilitating learning, solving problems? Because I want these students to get jobs. and they'll be able to live a decent life. But above that, I want them to understand the world. I want them to make informed decisions. I want them to be useful, happy citizens, not only of Oman, wherever they go in the world. That's my answer now after almost 18 years of teaching. It wasn't like that in the beginning, but now it has crystallized. So teaching to me is about student learning. So what is your main concern in teaching? And do you tell your students that? Well, I tell my students, and I have found that it makes a big difference. I tell them why I teach. I tell them because I want you to gain useful knowledge and skills that you will use in your personal lives and in your professional lives to make the right choices. I want you to become informed decision makers. I want you to be happy. They're ministers of happiness now. Well, I want my students to be happy. And when they know that there is a direct connection, the walls fall between us, and they're very relaxed. And they come to class even if I don't take attendance. And when they miss class, they apologize and they say, I really feel bad that I missed your class. I know I've missed so much. Do you know why? Because they know whatever I share in the classroom, I will link it to their personal lives and to their job interviews, a big concern for them, job interviews and their professional lives. Another question, how much have your students been learning? I've always wondered, after when I finish a lesson and I say, okay, thank you very much, you can all go now. Okay, and I'm always the last one to leave because there will always be students who have questions, but they don't have the courage to ask questions. And I don't want to force them. They have different reasons for being like that. And I do get many students coming to me, and I still follow this practice even online. I'm the last one to leave. And I do have one or two students who will stay behind and want to share something that they don't feel comfortable sharing with the others, for whatever reason. So how much have your students been learning, and how do you know? Well, there are different methods that I have learned. You look at their test scores across sections. This is for multi-section courses, your course, the others as well. You look at the scores of your students. For example, I've been teaching human resource management for many years, before my PhD and after as well. Dr. Salem also does this, and he's doing it at the MBA level as well. So if you look at your students' scores over the years, that is a clear indication of how much learning is happening. One method that my dad suggested is this. Now, my dad is a doctor, but he wanted to be a teacher. He became a doctor for various reasons in his life, in his childhood, but he still has that teacher in his heart. Many times when he was raising us up, I felt like he was a teacher. He would always give us lessons and lessons of life, which shaped who I am today. And I'm very thankful to him. He's retired now, and he is one of the wisest people I know. He said, Masita, why don't you do this? That was before I started my first MBA class. I said, Dad, I'm going to teach MBA classes. He said, yes, go ahead. You can do it. I said, I don't know, Dad. We'll try. He said, you know what? Do this and tell me how it goes. I said, what? He said, test them before you teach them, and then test them on the last day of class. I said, what for? He said, don't you want to know how much they've learned? I said, yeah. And I did it. And it was amazing. I did it in my first organization development and change class. So the first day of class, the introductions and everything, I told to the managers and the, all the other employees who come to class in the evening, I said, get a piece of paper and write to me, what is change? And I gave them 10 minutes to do that. And I said, write the day, write your name. I said, what, is this a test? I said, it's not a test. I just want to measure your level of understanding now. And I never got back to them about it. And they never asked about these papers. Last day of class, where I do a gallery. So they demonstrate what they have learned in form of images and pictures. which I believe is also a very powerful way of sharing what's in your mind with others. Because sometimes we have things in our mind, but we don't have the words to share. Pictures, using images and metaphors. Or consultants do that, and change agents as well. So last day of class, I asked them, okay, 10 minutes, please. Can you write on a piece of paper what is change? And they did. I took those papers and I brought out the day one answers, stapled them together, and I gave them back to the students. I said, I want you to see your answers day one and what you have written today. And they started laughing at the answers. They were like, oh my God, this is what we knew and this is what we know. So it was right in front of their eyes, the amount of learning, and that made them very satisfied. They thanked me a lot, and they left the class with great satisfaction. And I see that more and more students are joining organization development and change because of word of mouth. So that's a method that you might want to use. Now, another question is, what's the real measure of your success as a teacher? Did you ever ask yourself that question? Well, I've always wondered, when am I successful? When all my students get A's and B's? When they're all happy? When they like me? To me, it's many things, but the most of all is when they learn and they tell me, I didn't know this, but now I know. And in the future, I'm no longer going to behave in this way or say in this way or see things in this way. I'm going to see things differently now. To me, that is success. And there is another slide where you will also see other measures of success. Another question that guided me. It's been a concern. Remember that instructor who said, welcome to the other side. You're the enemy now. And this was in the first department meeting. And I was quiet and I smiled, but it kept me thinking, why the enemy? I don't want to be the enemy. My teachers were not my enemies. I never saw them like that. So how to win the hearts of my students so that they develop this passion of coming to my class? I want that as the first foundation for them to learn. And along the years, I can confidently share this with any teacher in the world. The secret lies in respecting the student. And I have great respect for my students. I want them to know that they deserve to be respected. When they go out tomorrow in organizations, they should respect themselves and also respect others. We have great respect in our classrooms, and I will continue doing it. I have no student who has misbehaved in my class. Never. No student who misbehaved. And I'm talking about 18 years of teaching. This means that there is something that I'm doing which works. And the secret is, like Ralph Waldo Emerson said, respecting the student. I have positive assumptions about them. I don't use theory X, I use theory Y. I make students know that I believe they are good people. They do not lie, they are responsible. They want to learn and improve. They want to develop all the positive things, assumptions you can have. And as I said, respect them. And also something that I saw in all the teachers who influenced me and whom I remember until today, from the time I was in kindergarten. Remember, I had a Pakistani teacher who used to say, Miss Ida, get up and sing for us the morning song. I still remember this. She is the first teacher who influenced me. She used to make me sing in every day. She was the class teacher. And I would sing, the lovely sun is shining up in the sky, so blue. Good morning, happy morning. Good morning, sun to you. And then we start our class. I still remember that. I was 5 or 6 years old. She influenced me. She created unforgettable moments. She cared. She cared about me. I felt that. She cared about my future. And I do the same. So the message I want to send out is, when you influence students with the way you relate to them, the way you talk to them, they inherit some of that, and they will use it somewhere in the world and influence others. So I try to make sure that my brand is excellence. The way I talk, the way I relate to them. I do a lot of reading, a lot of self development before I sit and talk to a student. I call, Dr. Esma, I call her assistant, I call Karima, I call the Office for Students of Special Needs. But before I sit with students, I want to make sure that I really do give them something useful, because I know it's moments in life, just one moment that a student could use as their guiding star. And it was one moment in my life that has been influencing me until today by a teacher in our college who passed away in 2008. But guess what? She's alive in my heart and in my mind. And she is my secret mentor. She never knew that. When I finished my PhD, the first person I wanted to know was not my mom and my dad. I went to the window, I was looking outside, and I said, "Dear God, she said that I could do this. Please tell her that I'm Dr. Miseda today." And I trust that God has done that. Well, I believe in God. And I believe that there is a world after that. So there you have a teacher who showed me that they care about me. They respected me. They believed in me. They told me, "You are the decision makers of the future." She told me, "Join teaching. We need more Omani women in higher education. And I see great potentials in you, Misida." I said, "Really? But I want to join Schlumberger. I want to join the oil and gas industry. I already had a job offer." And she said, "Go take these papers and just apply. See how it goes." And that was back in 2002. And look at where I am today. It was one moment that shaped my life. She taught me, by the way, human resource management and organization behavior. Okay, so I promise this is the last question. Who is a great teacher to you? Well, I do want to be a great teacher. Of course I do. I'm not one, but I do want to be. Hopefully before I retire, I should be able to say to myself that, yeah, you are one of those great teachers in the world. And as I said, when I think of all the teachers who influenced me since kindergarten to my PhD, they had one thing in common. They all cared about me. They showed me. They were not teaching because it was just a job and they needed money and they had other important things to do. No, when they were in the classroom, they showed me that I care about you, your future, and I'm here to facilitate learning in areas that will make you happy, that will make you wise, and you will inherit that with others. So you have to go wholeheartedly into anything in order to achieve anything worth having. And I believe in that. And there's a saying that says, the great teachers teach from the heart. And I believe that teaching, it is an intellectual journey, but it is also a work of the heart. And when you do that, students do feel it, by the way. Okay, let's tell you a bit of some stories, short stories. I promise they'll be very short, but I want you to peep into my memories. Hisham, the bus driver. So I had this student, very quiet student, who used to join the classes 10, 15, 20 minutes late. I don't like embarrassing students. Never in my life did I or will I embarrass a student because I respect them. I'm in a position of power, and I believe it is unethical to embarrass students, to use my power and do that. And I believe that they are there to learn. They are undergoing an evolution. This is what happened to me when I was a college student. I changed. I grew in Sultan Qaboos University. So he used to come late. I didn't jump into punishing him based on an assumption that he was a careless, irresponsible student, so I'll mark him absent. Since he didn't come to me to tell me, it's his responsibility to come to me and tell me. I said, "No, I need to ask Hisham." And I said, "Hisham, I'd like to talk to you after everyone has left." He came to me very gracefully. I said, "Hisham, I'd like to know what I can do to help you come to class on time." Do you see that question? That question, Behind that question is a positive assumption. And I learned this from performance appraisals and performance reviews in human resource management. Don't be judgmental. People become defensive and they don't like you. And when people don't like you, communication becomes unsuccessful. They will not learn from you. So, what should I be? I should be developmental. So, when you see a student doing something wrong, you call them and say, I would like to know how I can help you to overcome that. And not, oh, so and so, if you continue doing this, you're going to get an F or you will have to leave the class. I would never do that. I don't like jumping into wrong assumptions about people. I like investigating with positive assumptions. And people are bad when they prove to me that they're bad. If they don't, then everybody is good. That's how I see people in the world. Another story, Hanifa and the Penguins. And this is really catchy, isn't it? It'll make a good book title. Some of the things I'm thinking to do after my retirement is to publish books on different experiences I have. But of course, I'll take consent from the students. I do keep in touch with many students, by the way, after graduation, and I guide them through their job interviews and until they get jobs. I have students who are regional HR managers and students who are chairmen and CEOs now. They're better than me. I'm still here where I was when where they found me when they were students. But it makes me very happy to see them grow, advance. To me, that's a sign of success. Hanifa is one of those. Hanifa was a student at risk. She had very low self-efficacy. It was a result of different issues that were happening. She was an A student, but things happened and she started getting D's and F's. And that, it reduced her self-confidence. She didn't want to be involved in difficult tasks. She avoided work because she believed that I'll fail anyway. So she used to give up very quickly. Okay, so Hanifa was my advisee. And in one of the drop-in ad meetings we had, I looked at her transcript and I said, Hanifa, what happened? You were an A student. What's going on? And in the HRM classes, you're psychologically, you psychologically withdraw. Your body is there, but you're not participating. You were an A student, so look at these A's and B pluses. Let me know how I can help you. You see this question that I repeat with all students. I'm here to help you. This is confidential. Tell me, maybe I can do something. The university has a lot of support for students, but the difference between getting something and not getting is sometimes just asking. She opened up and she told me what changed her. Now, there was a National Geographic card. I like collecting postcards. Whenever I travel around the world, I just collect postcards. There was a time where I used to post these cards to friends, but now with emails and all that, we no longer have that need. So I end up framing them because they're really good pictures. So one of them was this postcard of penguins. There was this line of penguins, and they seemed very hesitant to jump off a cliff. And then one of them took the leap. That's the penguin you see. And I said, Hanifa, you have the potentials to do this. Just do it. I gave her advice. I do consult the counseling center, and I take advice from them so that they can guide me how to guide students, and advise students. And I also studied counseling as part of organizational development and change. So I use it when I advise students. And I said, Hanifa, take this card. Look at this penguin. That's you, Hanifa. You can do it, Hanifa. Just believe in yourself. Take the leap. Hanifa went away. She graduated. Hanifa didn't come back to me. 15 years later, I met Hanifa. 15 years later, I was in a shop. She heard my voice, and I hear someone saying, Dr. Masita. And I turned around and I said, yes. She said, it's me, Hanifa. I said, oh, hello. I never forget faces, but I forget names. That's one of my weaknesses, by the way. I know people for years, and they're people I know, but I don't know their names, and I don't bother to ask about their names. So she said, I'm Hanifa. I said, hello, yes, I remember you. She said, Doctor, I want to thank you for the advice you gave me. I said, Hanifa, what happened? Where did you go? She said, I graduated. It's because of that meeting we had. She said, Doctor, I am a general manager now. I said, that's fantastic. She said, remember the penguin card? I said, penguin card? She said, the National Geographic penguin card, the penguin that was, that took the first jump off the cliff. I said, yeah. She said, I still have it. Doctor, I derive strength from that card until today. Whenever I feel that I'm challenged, there are no solutions, things are against me, I just look at that card and I get things done. And I was like, silently, I didn't show Hanifa. And I was like, really? Was it that powerful? This was me saying to myself. And I said to her, oh, that's fantastic. Don't worry. I just did my job. I'm so happy. You do that for others as well. She said, sure, yeah. But I could tell in her eyes and her body language that she was so grateful. And, I was just silent for some minutes. I was thinking, wow, that penguin card was magical. I wish I didn't give it to her. No, I'm joking. But I was surprised at the effect of that card, So students need a good and caring listener, and they need some motivation. You need to have, I've learned, positive assumptions, and you're there not to judge them, but to develop them. Suspicious colleague. And this happened when I was in my 20s. And the senior colleague walked into my office and said, Miss Ida. I said, yes, doctor. He said, why do students like you? Why do you get so high teaching evaluations, above average? Is it because you give them easy assessments? And I was like, ouch, that's so offending. But I said that silently. I smiled and I said, no, doctor. I just respect them. I care about them and their future, and I have positive assumptions about them. I tell them that I teach them for their future. And I'm sure he wasn't convinced by that answer. He really thought that I was being a very lenient grader, assessor, and he just went away. Now, if I get asked that question again now, I'll have a more elaborated answer. Back then, I didn't have the right words, the right tools and techniques to articulate an answer to someone who is senior to me. I just, humbly, honestly said, this is how I related to them. That was my way of succeeding as a teacher. Now, today, if someone asks me that question again, I would say, these are the reasons, and many others as well. I care. I care about my teaching. I care. I want my brand to be excellence. I care. I want my students to be happy, successful citizens. I think about the future of my students, the future of my country. I ensure course alignment, develop myself. I read, how can I align my course to what? To SQU vision and mission and objectives, to the college's vision, mission, objectives, to SQU attributes, the college attributes, the course objectives, student intended outcomes. What assessments should I design to ensure that when students successfully complete these, they will have met those outcomes? What instruction methods or delivery methods I should use? What activities should I give them in the classroom? Academic advising, a big part of my role as a teacher, and I do it with my heart and mind. Students with special needs. As years pass by, I'm having more and more students with special needs. Again, it's word of mouth, and also they get registered under me, and I'm like, why are all these with me? Well, because you care. And that's what my students with special needs say. And I do have, by the way, neighbors in my department who really care. And I look up to them. I'm learning from them. So I get in touch with, I think her name is Dr. Wafa. She's in charge of the department that looks after students with special needs. And I learn from her. If I'm not sure about something, I ask her. Engagement, student engagement. I read and I have learned a lot from Harvard University, their resources, the online teaching resources. I am known in my department for teaching large classes. I teach classes with 50, 60 students. I go up to 60. And if it is allowed, I wouldn't mind teaching even 100 or 200 students. You see, what I have learned is it's not about the number of students. Learning will take place even if you're teaching 500 students. It all depends on what techniques you're using. And I have tried this and I get 100% engagement. And I'm using this now in my courses where I have 40 students. Now, to me, 40 is not a big class. It's a small class. I can do more. And we can have another session where I can share with others who have fear or who don't believe, who believe that the larger the class is, the less the engagement you get. And that's not true. Another reason for why, I get high teaching evaluations and why I have so much satisfaction in my work is because I'm a person who adopts a continuous improvement philosophy. I'm always looking for better ways of doing things. And I also believe that in terms of competence, we pass through phases. There was a time where I was unconsciously incompetent about so many things. And I would just listen and watch and read. I would do things thinking that I did it in the right way and be happy, but then later on realize you didn't do that in the right way. I was unconsciously incompetent. Then I became aware, but that's wrong. I'm weak in that area, consciously incompetent. And that made me look for better ways. And I was careful when I was implementing these new methods. They weren't just coming out naturally. So I was still learning. I was consciously competent. And now there are things that I do them unconsciously with competence because of practice, but also because of continuously learning. So if we recognize that, we become aware of that, and we recognize that there are areas that we're not good at and we don't realize it. You won't get that unless you question your practices. One of the tools I use is Kirkpatrick's model of evaluating training. At the end of every session, I ask students, how did you find the class? I want to know, did they like it? Did they find it interesting? Because it is the first, I would say, a prerequisite or a condition of learning. They should like it, enjoy it, and then they will learn. Then I ask them, okay, tell me one thing that you didn't know when you walked in the room or you joined our Google Meet class, and now you know. So every student gets a chance. And this is what I do in all my sessions. They learn from each other and they emphasize to themselves, what they have learned. And I also get a chance to correct some of their understanding. And then through the assessments, I like giving scenario-based multiple choice questions. I like giving questions that ask students to evaluate, to make judgments, to analyze, to create. A lot of my workshops ask students to create. The way I teach is this. I have a lecture. Say I'm going to teach training or I'm going to teach performance management. So we will have a lecture. I do not force students to read before the lecture because I want them to listen. And I simplify it as much as I can. I don't want to challenge them. I'm there to facilitate learning for them. So I give a lecture. After the lecture, we have a discussion session, and this is for the students to tell me what they have learned from the extra reading about the same topic. After the discussion session, I have a workshop, and this workshop is for them to transfer that learning to something practical. This is about developing skills now. You've got to design processes. You've got to design guides or manuals. This is in human resource management. And this is an approach that I consider mine because it developed along the years. And I spoke about it, I talked about it in CETL. I told them that this is my approach and it really works. Give a lecture. After the lecture, have a discussion session on the lecture topic. After the discussion session, have a workshop for hands-on practice now. So students manage to develop so many skills, and they manage to learn. I think there is someone who wants to join. Is that right? I heard something. Yes. We will let that person in. Okay, so we'll go back. We'll go back to our presentation, to the slide mode. Oops, I cannot go to the, I'll just try down here, if it works. Okay, let me see. Bear with me, please. I'm trying to remove this. For some reason, it is not. Okay, anyway, so we will continue. Can you see, Dr. Salim, can you confirm that we're on the same page, on the same slide?
Yeah, we can see the slides, yes, but it's not on the full show mode. Yeah, you can click on that. Yes, yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. Bear with me, I'm still learning a lot, to be honest, about these presentation methods here, using different online technologies. Okay, so that's my approach in teaching. And if you want to try, I can share with you how I do it if you're interested. But I have seen this along the years that it really works. Now, my grades, when my colleague came in and said, is it because you give them easy exams? Well, if I give them easy exams, we wouldn't get a normal distribution of grades. I do get normal distribution of grades in my classes. It is only in spring 2020 where I had 80% A's and B's, and I couldn't do anything about it. It was my first time to do this, and I know there are others in other departments as well. And course evaluations, yes, I do get high student evaluations, but I also do get comments from students about some other things. Now, something I've learned about these evaluations is to ask myself, what do you learn from them? Do you sit and read? Do you take them seriously? Do you change and develop as a result of these evaluations? And one way of me measuring my success is by making sure that my students do get jobs. So my job doesn't end when they graduate. I get students calling me and saying, Doctor, I have an interview in 5 minutes, doctor. Wish me luck. And I say, yeah. And that would be after I had guided them and shared them and sometimes do a mock interview with them. I take the extra mile, but this is something personal because I consider my success is when these students get jobs. That's if you can go back to the beginning of the presentation. Why do I teach? For them to make a living and for them to know how to live. And that's why I go this far in my career with students. And I also do guide entrepreneurs because I myself am an entrepreneur as well. So I encourage them to use their business models in the class and to share their experiences with other students. And this is linked with the larger context of Oman, where entrepreneurship is a big thing in Oman, and the government wants at least 30% of graduates to be entrepreneurs and job seekers. Okay, now let's move on to what is it that you want students to learn? We're teaching in changing times. The world around us is changing, and the way we communicate, you see, where are we communicating now? If we go back to fall 2019 and fall 2018 and 2010, we never did this. So we're communicating, we're building relationships differently. The way we find information, there was a time Google wasn't there. People had to travel to get to talk to experts. Now information is on your fingertips. The way we shop has changed, the way we learn, the way we work. Everything has changed since the time you were a student and maybe since the time you started teaching. But my question is, what have you done in response to those changes? I've asked myself this question. How have you adapted your teaching? And I've been guided with asking myself, well, since the world is continuously changing and the real world out there is where the real exam will be for my students, and it will be a measure of my success as a teacher as well. What knowledge, skills, abilities, and other personal characteristics will be critical for my success as a teacher and the success of my learners and the graduates? I go and search for skills of the century, consultancy firms, world organizations, they do research, really good research. This is one of them, okay? And this was done by the World Economic Forum with one of the big 5 consultancies. And this is the link to the document. It's WEF New Vision for Education, 2015 document. And they identified 16 skills, okay? And the reason why I'm showing this, because we want to make sure that what we are saying and doing in the classroom is shaping students and building them for the skills that they will need to succeed in their times. So foundational literacies, competencies around how they approach complex challenges, and character qualities, for them to be curious, to take the initiative, to have grit, to have aptitude, be willing to learn and unlearn, and being able to adapt, to have leadership, start with their own selves, to lead their studies, to lead their own careers later on, instead of taking a reactive approach and wait until your manager recommends you for a promotion. No, you seek that career move and not. So, you connect what you teach them in the classroom to their lives, and you give them examples that they can relate with, and not examples that they don't know about or they cannot identify with. Now, ask yourself, what am I teaching students for? Where am I leading them to? How am I shaping their minds? The influence that you're making in them, in their lives of whom they will influence. What has guided me? Well, it's this. When I first became a teacher, I said, because I'm a management student, I thought in that way, because my teachers shaped my thinking. And I said, okay, I'm in an institution and I have to work, but I'm working towards achieving what? I needed that direction. So I wanted to know, these students whom I meet every day, what should they be at the end? So I found the SQU graduate attributes and the college's graduate attributes. They should have teamworking skills. They should have business knowledge. They should be able to communicate professionally. They should know how to investigate business problems. They should have an entrepreneurial culture. They should be lifelong learners, ethical. They should always think about the ethicality and legality of whatever they do in their lives. And they should become good citizens and active ones who contribute in solving societal problems, and they should know how to use technology. Because this is what we have realized. Now, I'm a person who doesn't like using technology, and I don't feel shy saying it, I don't like technology, but with the pandemic, it came straight on my face that, wake up, it's time to change. You need to get used to this. This is going to be the new normal. And I learned along the way. And now look at me. I'm doing a presentation in front of my peers, and I feel confident doing it. So I have learned. And so when I teach my students, I know exactly what kind of a person I want this student to be upon their graduation. And this guides me when I think of the assessments, when I think of the activities I want to do, and even the stories and the videos that I show them in class. Okay, and the sources there, it's from our website. So after that introduction I have given you, now I would like to invite you to an approach that will help you learn and continuously improve. It is something that I discovered in spring 2020 before the pandemic. It was an idea became a project in 2006 in America, United States of America. Now, it started as an invitation by the American Association for Higher Education they had a project that they were working on, and they invited instructors, professors from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln to participate. And this idea was born of making teaching and learning visible. It started as a peer review project, but then out of it came the idea of collaborations, teachers collaborating, developing a culture of collaboration. The book was published in 2006, and we were given that book as a gift by the facilitator during the 3 weeks, the 3 days faculty fellow orientation in CETL. I still have it, I read it, and I'm working towards creating a course portfolio and doing some investigations on some issues that I'm interested in developing in the way I teach and the way students learn. Several universities have tried this method, this project of making teaching and learning visible, and there is concrete proof that it helps you improve. Okay, so you have Kansas State University, Indiana, University of Michigan, Texas A&M University, and others as well. So that's what I found. And I found it to confirm what I had believed for several years. You know, teaching doesn't have to be an isolated journey. Yes, this is what made me dissatisfied. We don't have to be working in silos. We need to initiate a culture where people feel safe to talk about teaching, where there is privacy, there is recognition, there is appreciation, there is respect. I learned that one of the most powerful ways to help teachers improve is to encourage peer collaborations, you know, through professional conversations, through sharing your course file with other teachers and saying, I just want to know your views on this. Do you have any suggestions? You know, and observing others, how they do their work, not to judge, but to develop yourself and to develop others. When we started peer reviews in our department, I remember when they started talking about it back then, many years ago, not just 2 or 3 years back, I remember there was resistance. You know, I remember it very clearly. People didn't want, you know, who are you to come and sit and tell me how I'm teaching? It was approached in the wrong way. It is not for you to be judged. It's for us to learn from each other. And when you tell that to your colleagues, they become more relaxed. Then when you say, okay, we're going to do a peer review and I'm going to tell you about your teaching, oh no, people become defensive and they'll start saying, well, I need an expert to come to my class. You know, whatever you're going to tell me should be backed by research and should have proof that it works. Otherwise, it's just going to be an opinion. So thanks to the Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning, Dr. Othwing, Professor Thueba, for giving us the opportunity to learn from Professor Daniel Bernstein. He's a professor of psychology and he's the director of the Center for Teaching Excellence at the University of Kansas. And he is the one who started peer reviews in 1994. And he has other colleagues, Emmy Nelson and Amy Goodburn and Paul Severy. They're all professors or associate professors in the same university. And they worked together in that peer review project, where in that project, the idea of teachers' collaboration and making teaching visible eventually became a project. Okay, so I'm inviting you to this approach because I believe that it works and I've seen proof from around the world. So if we would like to adopt this approach, what should we do? Well, start by choosing a target course. You all have been teaching courses. And there is a course that is closer to your heart. You feel it when you go to the class. You are more comfortable teaching it. You love that course. You love the topics. Pick that course. Describe it in your own way. Describe its goals, student intended outcomes. Look at your course outline. Is it written in the right way within the template that is required? Describe the activities that you do. Think about your teaching practices. How do I teach? Is there alignment? Remember the idea of alignment I talked about? Is there alignment in my course? Okay. Move on to student learning. Within that course, start documenting student learning. Remember the methods I talked about, the pre-test, post-test scores. That's very strong evidence that your students have learned. Some instructors do this. They look at student scores in exam 1, exam 2, and exam 3. Have they been increasing or decreasing or stagnant? You can even look at semester by semester test scores in the same course that you teach. The variations will be because of many factors, but one of them, very strong factor, is how you teach the students, how you assess them. Now, if you're going to use examples of students' work, you need to get student consent for that, and then put together a portfolio of all that. It describes your course, it analyzes your practices, it also gives clear-cut evidence that your students have been learning. And you end it with a reflection, your own personal reflection, because it is your journey, not anybody else's journey. There's no right or wrong in it. Say what you learned, say what improvements you made. That's your intellectual journey of teaching. And then what you can do is, besides coming up with a course portfolio, now you can pick a topic, an issue that you would like to investigate from that course. For example, myself, and I share this with colleagues, they say, I don't see myself until now very good in teaching case studies. I never liked case studies when I was a student at different levels, master's, PhD, and even bachelor's level, especially the extended cases. I never found them useful. I used to get lost. And that has influenced me as a teacher. I love using mini cases, caselets. I love using scenarios. They're quick, they're easy to understand, to comprehend, not 21, 15 pages. That's my own personal view. So I am consciously incompetent in using case studies. This is how I see myself. And this is an area where I can investigate in. There are beliefs. I believe that mini cases are better than extended cases. That's so I could pick that as an issue for investigation, do a small research study, collect data, analyze. I can consult the literature, get findings, consult experts, peers who do case study. We do have in our department people who are really good at using case studies. One of them is Dr. Ghulam, and there are others as well. So I'm done with my little research study. Then what? After all that, well, share your findings. Make your teaching and students' learning visible. Where do I share my findings? In your department, among your peers. Where else? In your college, like what I'm doing now. I'm sharing with colleagues my journey. This is my personal journey. I have my evidence of what worked and what didn't work. You can share it in your university. You can contact CETL, Dr. Althreen, Professor Thuwaiba, Dr. Bedria, and tell them there's something I'd like to share with others. I'm sure they will be thrilled to enable you to share that with others. You can participate in international conferences. You can publish your study. And all of these will contribute to your evolution, to becoming a better teacher, to your annual performance appraisal, because there is a section that talks about developing teaching and learning, scholarship of teaching and learning, and also your eligibility for promotion. Whenever I fill out my performance appraisal, I sit and think, what have I done? What should I write in this section? Well, I've tried different methods. Yes, I have tried different methods in my classrooms. One of them is a staged quiz or a staged test, and I can share that with others who are interested. I found that if you want to use tests as a method for students to learn, use the staged quiz. You let the students answer individually and then allow them to answer the same quiz in a team. You will be amazed by how much they learn. And I have done this. It was new to students. I took their opinions, and I can publish. And I did take students' consent, and I said, if I were to publish this, is it okay with you? They said, yeah, sure. And I said, what about your comments? They said, yes. So I have them in a file. I still haven't designed a little study that I could publish in that. I'm sure others would be interested. And I would like to know if there are others who've tried this staged exam or a staged quiz. It is a tried, tested, proved approach. Peer learning, peer discussion. Very, very strong, powerful approach to learning among students and among teachers as well. What then? Well, when you do this, teaching doesn't just become talking in the classroom and marking and assessing. It becomes an intellectual work. We're talking about the scholarship of teaching. You become a reflective teacher, a teacher who feels greatly responsible for what they say, what they do, how students learn from them. A teacher who can talk with confidence about their methods and demonstrate the effectiveness of their teaching with concrete evidence. You advance. And when you retire or you change jobs, you do that with satisfaction. You look back and you say, I worked hard. I managed to achieve the highest. This is what Oprah Winfrey said, the highest, the truest version of yourself. And also, you contributed in improving teaching, you improved lives, and you leave behind a positive influence in the world, your own legacy. How would you like to be remembered? Everything will fade away. One day we will all be forgotten. And nobody will remember anything about us, but you can leave behind some influence. And it can be inherited, and people can build up on it. What I want to say is, you're powerful. You are very powerful. And that is a great responsibility. How are you using that power to influence students, to shape their minds, to prepare them for the future? The real exam is out there. Will they succeed or not? So what I've learned since 2002 up till today, we're all good teachers. All, and I respect all teachers, and I know I can learn from each and every teacher I meet. And that's why I like talking about teaching. And I know they can also learn from me. And I believe that we can all be great teachers of our own kind. But if you choose to be so. So teaching shouldn't be a solo journey. And you know what? When you isolate yourself, you're missing so much. There is so much going on in the world. You need to catch up. You need to question your practices. You are in this noble, great movement that started in so many centuries back. You're making change right from the classrooms of the world. And your influence will go so far. Some of my teachers are dead. People no longer talk about them, but they are silently influencing me. And as I said, one of them is still my guide and my mentor. I still remember her words, my meetings with her in the office, what she used to tell me. She cared about me. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world, and I believe that. Be the change you want to see in the world. Respect them. Show them what is the right way to relate to others. They learn from us. They see us as their role models. So one of the best ways for us to improve and grow is by talking about teaching. It's about sharing our course files. It's about creating a space where we feel relaxed and we can share our mistakes without having the fear of someone criticizing or someone opposing and threatening me. Oh no, if someone tells me that's not the right way, I would say, really? Can you tell me more about it? That's how I deal with it. When someone tells me, no, you didn't get it right. And I'll say, really, I'm interested in knowing more. Can you tell me more? I'm really curious to know more, But then the biggest choices begin and end with you. Do the right thing. Every time you enter the class, just have that concern. I want to do it right. Let excellence be your brand as a teacher. So after all that, you're an amazing teacher. You have touched lives. You're different. I'm not like you. You have your own fingerprint, your own eyeprint. You are different, and that's what makes you unique. But try to become the truest and the best version of yourself by questioning your approaches, by making teaching an intellectual journey, and by sharing it with others. What I want us all to take today with us is this. Pick up one course, and these are the words of Dr. Daniel Bernstein. Pick up one course that you like and make it your guiding star. Question what you do in it and make teaching an intellectual journey. Share what you learn with others, seek feedback, and continuously improve. Now, we need a passion for teaching. We need intellectual humility, respect, care for the student, awareness of the meaningfulness of your role, and a sense of responsibility towards that. So if you found what I said convincing, exciting, well, how can we encourage this culture of collaboration at the institutional level? It requires top management support, and I'm so pleased that Dr. Al-Mukhtar is here. He's our top manager. And it also requires a focus on learning, a very clear focus on learning. You know, we're doing this because we believe we can learn from each other. And this needs to be supported with objectives, clear objectives. Without objectives, we're just going to be floating around with no purpose. But also, we want to manage it well. We don't want to force people. We want people to do it at their own pace. We want people to talk when they feel like talking. You know, little steps, little incremental changes lead to massive changes over time. You know, creating a safe place and building trust. For us to encourage a culture of teachers' collaboration, we need to trust each other. I want to connect with teachers whom I can trust, teachers who will respect me, teachers who are committed to improving teaching and learning. I want teachers who ensure privacy, teachers who will give me credit for my approaches. So if I share something with them and they adopt it, they do cite it. We teach our students to reference, but do we do it when we take ideas from other teachers? This is an issue that is discussed in the world in teachers' communities. Are we referencing other teachers' works? You know, you come across a nice exercise, you love it, and you adopt it, but you don't mention where you got it. Someone else worked hard to design that exercise. You know, you can just write in very small writing, source, and just write some little details. And we want to also find ways to avoid teacher isolation, because isolation is not conducive to learning. And how can we do that? Start. You start. You start asking others questions that come in your mind. Ask your next door neighbor, one in front of your office, beside you, the person you're most comfortable with. In department meetings, why don't you give some 10-15 minutes of each meeting to talk about any teaching-related matters? So the HODs can end the meeting and say, okay, so now we have our 10 minutes for teachers talk, or dare to share session, or best mistake of the semester. You know, these are names, of course, of sessions that teachers around the world use. I like the dare to share session. You know, do you dare to share with others your mistakes? But okay, we make mistakes. So what? I learned from it. I'm better now. That's a good thing to share with others, isn't it? So create a department committee on teaching and learning. We have so many committees, but we don't have committees on teaching and learning. Why don't we have these committees? We need to recognize the importance of improving ourselves and improving student learning. And we could also have formal collaboration meetings. I was so excited when Dr. Al-Mukhtar Al-Abri called for that college-wide meeting, and where we had the opportunity to talk about teaching. That was like one of the best experiences of my journey in this college. I loved it. And I'm so grateful I was given the opportunity to talk about virtual meetings and share that with others. And also one of the ways to avoid teacher isolation is to move into what is called a scholarship of teaching and learning. And this is a movement of scholarly thought, SOTL or SOTL. And it's where teachers undertake systematic inquiry about teaching and learning. And it has two approaches: scholarship of teaching and learning. You either use a reflective approach or a scholarly approach. Reflective approach is Teachers just regularly thinking about their teaching, questioning their practices, sharing with each other, how my teaching impacts students and how we can improve. But there is another approach to it, and that's the scholarly approach. And this will contribute to your promotion and to your performance appraisal. That's publishing. Publishing those little inquiries that we talked about. You pick a topic for investigation in how you teach, or something you have noticed in students and how they learn, an obstacle most of them face, and you design a little research study, not alone. You can do it with others, who agree with you that this is an issue with our students. Consult the literature, share your findings, attend a conference, share it with the college, with the university. You grow, you advance. You're a scholar in teaching and learning. Heraclitus said, "No man ever steps in the same river twice." And if we think about it, no man ever steps in the same river twice. Do you know why? A river is moving, right? It's not the same river the next time you pass. And you're not the same man. So it's your choice whether you want to become the best version of yourself. Choice is the engine of your evolution. One thing I can assure you is I have influenced you today. And in your next class, you know what? You're not going to be the same you that you're now, or that you were when we started this talk. You will start questioning your choices. And please do not kill that curiosity. Embrace it, because it is going to lead you, and it will encourage you to start talking about teaching, to start reading about teaching, and that will mark the real start of your evolution towards your own brand of excellence as a teacher. And here I've reached to the end of my presentation. I'd like to thank you so much for being here. I have no idea how many people are here so far. I can't wait to see the numbers, but it doesn't matter. It's quality and not quantity, isn't it? So I'm really honored and humbled. I have great colleagues who have joined me, people who have long years of experience, who've been working silently so hard, and I look forward to learning from you. And I'd like to end this with what I said in the beginning. I'm not an expert in education. I'm not here to tell others how to teach. I'm just a teacher who loves teaching, a teacher who believes in continuous improvement and the power of peer collaborations. What Dr. Daniel Bernstein shared with me in spring 2020 in the 3 days orientation, I believe in its power. And I said, I have to share this with my colleagues. It has been bothering me to see teachers in isolation when we can start learning just by talking about teaching. If you want to talk about teaching, those are my contact details. You can call me, feel free to call me, you can WhatsApp me, and you can also email me. I'll definitely get back to you. Thank you very much for giving me your attention, your interest, and your time. Yeah, thank you very much. And now if we can hear any comments or we hear any questions, I'll be more than pleased to share my thoughts.
Thank you very much, Dr. Maseda. You have indeed influenced us. Thank you very much for sharing your journey as a teacher, for all the valuable lessons and experiences you have shared with all of us. And I'd like to give the floor now for the participants to if they have any questions or comments, as Dr. Maseda mentioned. So
yes, and I'll see any chats we have here as well. Yes, I welcome any questions, any comments. Remember that the Kirkpatrick's 4 level of evaluating training. So definitely I'm going to ask you, how did you find it? Was it interesting? Did you learn anything from it? Are you going to transfer any of that, in your own classrooms? What one thing you have liked in this presentation today? It really means a lot to me because it's a measure of my success.
Yeah, if I may start, I think 2 important things that I learned from you today is the first one is just mentions the applying Kirkpatrick to evaluate the results of our teaching. So I think it's very important to check with students to see whether we would be successful in delivering, the learning that we wanted to
Yes.
deliver at the beginning of the class. So I
Yes.
think I'm going to do that in my classes. And the
Yes.
other thing also is dividing the class or the session into that three components: the lecture,
Yes.
the discussion, and the
Workshop.
application. Yeah, the workshop.
Yeah.
So I think that is very, very useful. And
Yes.
the last part of it is maybe the most important one, because that's the time where you can see what the students have actually learned and now
Yes.
can apply what they have learned. So thank you
Yes.
very much for sharing these are
My
indeed very
pleasure.
useful. Yeah.
My pleasure. Very pleased to hear that. Dr. Mukhtar Al-Abri?
Thank you very much, Dr. Musada. I really enjoyed listening and
Thank
watching
you.
your presentation. It's
Thank
really
you.
inspiring.
Thank you.
So one of the when I think of him as a mentor also. This was Jalal Amin. Jalal Amin was a professor of economics in American
Yes.
University Cairo, and
Yes.
previously was in the University of Cairo. He passed away like in 2018.
Yes.
He also I read three of his books. These were like memoirs. Like he kind of talked about his life, his journey, and so on.
Yes.
He was. It seems that he was also a beloved teacher. He was also like inspiring and influential person.
Yes.
He was also sharing in his memoirs, like he shared his experiences in classrooms,
Yeah.
and he was saying that I always like to kind of merge between the general and the special. The general, by general, he means and everything about the society and about the community, about Egypt in general,
Yes.
or international experience. And
Yeah.
especially he talks about himself, like his own experience. And he says,
Yeah.
whenever like I switch from the general to the special,
Yes.
students get more kind of engaged. They start
Yes.
like listening and paying attention and so on. So he said this
Yes.
is kind of an art. You need to strike this balance
Yes.
always. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
You also talk in the beginning about why people like they choose to teach. Why
Yes.
yeah, what motivates them to be a teacher.
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, it came to my mind like a saying from the philosopher Bernard Shaw. So
Yes.
I'm also a fan of Bernard Shaw, to some extent. He once like said he's a sarcastic person. All his plays are sarcastic and so on. So he used to say that those who know how to do things they do them, and
Yeah.
those who don't know how to do things they teach them.
Yes.
So يعني he's sarcastic, he's saying that. I don't know,
Yeah.
like to what extent you feel that
Yes.
this applies,
Sure.
to reality or not.
Yes.
So
As a,
thank you very
it's
much
a,
again. I really enjoyed
thank you.
this experience and your lecture today.
Thank you, thank you, and thank you very much for sharing the your views as well. Now, with regards to Bernard Shaw and what he said about those who don't know, how to do things, they teach. Actually, what I found when I go and talk to managers, in different government businesses, because that's the group of companies that I did my PhD in, and I like to continue my relationships with them and share my findings. Some of them ask me, Doctor, okay, this is all theory, isn't it? You never worked. So you really don't know to what extent these can work. And that's very challenging when they tell you this. But then, because I read stories of success and failure, I read stories from different contexts, and I understand my field, and yes, solutions are context specific, but when there are similarities in context, you could try the solutions. but with a clear understanding of what suits your own organization. So I believe it's one of the greatest challenges we face when we are pure academics and we go out and meet practitioners. They're a bit skeptical and they say, okay, you're coming to preach when you haven't practiced any of this. And this is something, yes, that I face, and I usually tell them that I've read, I've done research. My experience is by talking with people like you yourselves. Your experience as a manager is just limited to your own experience, whereas my experience is learning from hundreds of other managers. And when I tell them that, they agree with me and they say, yeah, okay. But then I also accept and I say, yeah, your solutions will be context specific. I can't tailor make, I can't sell you a model. I'm not that type of a consultant to sell you a model. You need your own internal consultants who understand your business inside out. They're the best people who can tailor make, a solution for your business. So yeah, I agree with what you said, Dr. Mukhtar. That's fine, Dr. Sabrina. Thank you very much for joining us. Anyone else would like to share anything? We don't want to keep people waiting. I know I've taken a lot of your time, to be honest. Okay, so it seems there are no questions, Dr. Salim.
Well, in that case, I'd like to thank you once again for volunteering and for also for stepping forward to share the valuable lessons and experiences you have shared with us tonight. Thank you very much for all the time and effort you have put to share all this with us. And I'm sure more people will be motivated to share their teaching experiences with with the rest of college members. And I think, yeah, this is the pioneering session in this journey.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.
Dr. Salim and Dr. Mukhtar, you being at the managerial level, I hope that you are going to support initiating a culture of collaborations among teachers. And if you would like me to share more about how that can be done, I'll be more than pleased to do that.
I'm sure about that. I'm sure Dr. Mukhtar will also extend full support, and in all of us, I will extend full support to this with whatever means available.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's and I would like also to thank all participants who have joined us tonight, and for all the input they have provided, for their time. I'm sure that they have other commitments, especially that it's Thursday, it's evening time. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us tonight. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Dr. Salim, you will have to tell me how I can stop the recording. This is my first time to record a session.
Click on that red,
this button.
Yeah.
The red recording button.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we will stop the recording. Is that it? Nothing is happening. Let me see again. Do I go to the three dots again?
Yeah, again, and then.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so that's done. The recording will be saved in my Google Drive. So